So this is a new what if that I just wanted to do, and it's completely unscripted, and I'm making a story as I go. Now, basically, this is what if Deku was joined the what was it? The Tournament of Power from Mortal Kombat. Now, this will be pretty much going through the same, not the same story, but like kind of the same plot as the Mortal Kombat movie that just came out today. This what was it? The day is the 24th, so the 23rd Friday was when the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie just came out, and I watched it, and it was it was a pretty good movie. My parents said it was okay, it wasn't really good. The only thing about the movie I didn't really like was I think it was Jax's arms. They just looked very weird, and they just looked not, organic metal, like in the, like in the, what was it? Like, it had that mechanic vibe, like from certain video games, but like they should have went off of the mechanic vibe that was, like the Mortal Kombat 11 or Mortal Kombat X, the, like, Colossus type arms. Basically, Jax the only character in this movie that I didn't really like. And I generally like black heroes because, I'm black, but I just didn't like his arms. It just didn't do. And plus, why would he go up against Sub-Zero alone? Like, this man's have to be stupid. But, yeah, so basically, Kano, I actually liked him. I didn't want him to die, but I actually liked him. I didn't want him to die. He was a traitor, but he was one of my favorite villains in Mortal Kombat, other than Sub-Zero, and, and I think it was Spinner, I think that was his name, or Kaido, whatever, that super speed guy that went up against Kang Lu, or Liu Kang, Kun Lao? No, that's not, I think that's his name? No, but basically, the movie was pretty good. All along, it was a really good movie. In my opinion, it was probably a 9 out of 10. Now, you're probably saying, really? A 9 out of 10? You capping. But it was a good movie. It's a really good movie. And, yeah, my favorite character was probably, what was it? The descendant of Scorpion. He was probably one of my favorite characters. Now, what else? One of my other favorite characters were what was it? The fire guy. I don't remember his name. Kun Lao, I think. Lao Kang. Liu Kang, yeah, Liu Kang. Basically, Deku is actually going to be brothers. Alright, Deku's going to be pretty much the descendant of Liu Kang. What was it? Deku is going to be basically the chosen one, to be specific. He's going to be literally the chosen one. Basically, Deku will be very powerful, but yeah, so basically this story is going to be kind of like my What If Deku was Star-Lord. Every What If is going to be my own story. So this is more or less a 3-parter. Now basically, this What If is only going to be in 3 parts. It's going to be going off of video game lore and video game lore and video game lore and video game lore and movie lore, and maybe the comics. So basically, let's get into the what if, because yeah, I've been talking about the movie for a pretty long time. Let's just get into the what if. It's been 4 minutes. So let's get into the what if. Now basically, Deku is going to be a pretty OP character, but we start our story off when Deku is getting bullied by Bakugo. Now in this universe, Deku still has green hair. Nothing changed about Deku's looks, but Deku does actually have a natural fit body. So Deku does have more of a personality, or has more confidence in himself. Now Deku is getting punched by Bakugo, and Bakugo throws an explosion at Deku. But in that quick second, Deku's eyes turn yellow, and Deku dodges the attack, grabbing Bakugo by the throat and throwing him into a wall. Deku is confused, and Bakugo gets back up and says, "How did you do that, you quirkless nerd?" Deku runs off, and Bakugo's lackeys chase after him. Deku gets away, and he's pretty much going crazy, saying, "What just happened?" Deku shrugs it off and saying it was probably some adrenaline or something, and he walks back home. So Deku goes back home and goes to sleep that night. Deku over the course of 2 more days, doing the 10-month art training, Deku actually did not go down the Sludge Villain tunnel. He went down his normal route and basically went home, normally, not going through the tunnel. Basically, the Sludge Villain actually, what was it? The Sludge Villain did get captured by All Might, so the Sludge Villain never got a hold of Bakugo, so the Sludge Villain attack never happened. Basically, Deku is walking down the street, and he sees a woman getting pretty much mugged by 3 men with very powerful quirks. One of the men has a quirk that makes their body turn into, solid metal, but he can't move, but it can hurt people. Another one of them has the quirk that can shoot lasers from their forehead, like a third eye. Another one of them have a quirk called Spike that can basically make spikes out of any material out of their body. So basically, they start mucking the woman, and the woman gives them all of her money. They say that's not enough, and pretty much about to, take her out. Deku steps in and says, "Leave her alone," and pretty much they look at him saying, "What are you gonna do about it? Get out of here, kid." And pretty much Deku says, "No." Pretty much stuttering to himself, "Why did I say no?" And pretty much one of the men sent another guy, the laser forehead guy, to go over to the pretty much kid and take him out. Pretty much Deku looks at the man, and the man goes for a punch towards Deku, but Deku dodges and breaks the man's wrist. Deku's confused how he can do that. Deku never had a day of training in his life, or combat training at all. Deku barely even knew how to throw a good punch. Pretty much Deku starts beating the absolute, dog water out of this guy, and the guy didn't even have a chance to use his quirk against Deku. Deku was confused because Deku was never trained in hand-to-hand combat in his life, but now he feels like he knows everything. He feels like he's a kung fu master. Basically, Deku dodges more attacks or more punches from the middle statue guy, and the guy turns into the middle, jumping on top of Deku. Deku kicks the man into a wall, surprised at how much strength Deku has. Deku looks at his hands and sees them stained and burning up and glowing yellow or red. And the man with a laser eye, the man with a spike quirk, the leader of the group, throws a spike at Deku. Deku dodges it, grabbing the spike in the air and throwing it back at the man, stabbing the man in the chest, killing him. Deku looks at the man saying, No, I didn't mean that. And pretty much the woman says, "Thank you," and pretty much looks at Deku, confused, and just walks off. More or less running off because she doesn't want to get mugged by the man. Pretty much Deku looks at the man, and pretty much one of the other men, they had their spine broken because Deku kicked them in a wall incredibly hard. The laser eye guy, Deku broke his wrist, and also Deku did karate chop him in the throat. So the guy is suffocating on the ground, and he just kills somebody. Deku's confused. Deku hears a lightning bolt behind him, and he looks behind himself, and he sees a man in some sort of weird outfit. Deku sees Raiden. Pretty much Deku looks at Raiden, and Raiden looks at him and says, "You are chosen to be Earth's realm greatest champion." Pretty much holding out his hands and teleporting Deku with him to pretty much a trailer park, and Deku being confused, saying, "What happened? Who are you? And what just happened back there?" Rain does a little quick explanation about the dragon marking. Now, Deku in this canon, Deku was born with a dragon marking, but nothing interesting happened about that. Pretty much Deku's mother was confused because Deku, when he was born, he had a dragon marking on the middle of his chest. Deku was born with it, and pretty much says maybe it's a sign of a quirk. When Deku was told to be quirkless, Ochako just said probably. Inko said it was probably just a weird-looking birthmark. Pretty much, Deku, is raised the same. But since Deku had that mark, Deku was also destined to become Earth Realm's greatest champion. Pretty much, Deku says, "Why do I know this now? Why didn't I kick him when I was a kid?" Pretty much, Ronin says, "You are the chosen one. Multiple people have not had the dragon. You have the dragon symbol since you were a child, meaning that is in your bloodline. Meaning that someone in your bloodline is a Mortal Kombat champion, and you are going to be taking their place in the tournament of power." And a lightning bolt strikes down on a nearby trailer, spooking Jax and I think it was her name was Sasha. I think that was her name. Sasha's Jess. Whatever. The blonde girl that is married to Johnny Cage. Basically, she and Jax wake up and pretty much get out the trailer looking at Deku and Rain. Rain says, "You're here," and pretty much teleports all of them to the temple, where Kun Lao and Liu Kang is. Pretty much they tell them to get ready, and pretty much Rain explains to them about the Tournament of Power, about how they are destined to play in the Tournament of Power, the Mortal Kombat. Pretty much Deku says, was that last part just fake?" And pretty much Rain looks at Deku, and Deku says, "Come on, why are we here?" And Deku is told by Rain to shut your mouth, and pretty much tells everybody that you're all destined here because you have been chosen, and you all have these. All of you have the symbol of the dragon. Jax looks at his arm, seeing that the symbol of the dragon is on his wrist, and pretty much Jess I'm just gonna call her Jess. I don't know her real name. Saitasha, the blonde girl from Mortal Kombat. I don't know. I'm gonna look it up because I need to know. Her name's Sonya Blade. Yeah, I know now. Sonya Blade. I'm probably gonna call her Blade. Basically, Blade and Jax pretty much look at their bodies, seeing their marks, and seeing that pretty much saying that. So these marks are supposed to give us powers. Now, Jax and Sonya are all all of them are quirkless. Pretty much, Iranian says, since you guys are quirkless, the power of the dragon is within you, and we shall start our training now. Basically, Rainin teleporting them to a fighting ring, and pretty much Deku being told to go up against Liu Kang. Liu Kang gets into a fighting position, and Deku steps back saying, "I don't want to fight you." And Liu Kang saying, "Well, you have to see what you got." Now, basically, Deku's abilities are going to be mentioned in later, but for now, Deku's just going to have his normal fighting skill naturally that he got from his ancestor, and that's going to be unknown for now. Basically, Deku looks at Liu Kang and pretty much goes to a fighting position that feels right to him, and Liu Kang pretty much looking at him saying, "You've had some training before." Deku says, "That's the thing. Today, I just found out that I just know everything about Kung Fu. I didn't even know how to throw a punch before, but I know how to break somebody's neck." Pretty much, Liu Kang says, "It's in your blood," and says, "Let's stop talking." And pretty much runs over to Deku. Deku dodges the attack, and Deku gets into a fighting position and pretty much starts fighting Liu Kang. They start fighting and they go into it. They start throwing punches left and right, and eventually Deku gets to a point where he's about to kick Liu Kang right into the face. Liu Kang dodges the attack, grabbing Deku by the throat and throwing Deku into a wall, using his fire attack to throw at Deku. Deku in that second uses his fire against Liu Kang, pretty much grabbing it like a freaking football and chucking it back at him. He's confused, but he dodges easily and throws another, pretty much, basically Deku goes into a punch, and Deku dodges pretty much another punch that Liu Kang is taking. Liu Kang throws pretty much throws a multi kick in the air, the iconic move Liu Kang is known for, and starts kicking the absolute the absolute dog water out of Deku, knocking Deku into a pillar and knocking him out. Pretty much, Liu Kang is confused and says, "Raining, what was that?" Raining says, fire manipulation. Pretty much, after Deku wakes up in a medic, or in pretty much a bed, because, the temple has medics, and pretty much Deku wakes up looking at Liu Kang saying that, what happened, looking at Liu Kang saying, what happened. Liu Kang says, well, you got laid on your bed. Getting told by Liu Kang that he lost. Deku basically gets back up saying that, so I lost? I feel like someone just kicked me in my soul. Pretty much, Liu Kang says, that's probably on account of me kicking you into a pillar and you getting knocked out. Deku says, you kicked me into a pillar? Pretty much, Liu Kang says, whatever. And basically, Rainen walks into the room and explains to Deku that you have abilities. Deku says, yeah, I just blocked a whole entire fireball. And pretty much, Deku, over the course of pretty much a week, Deku gains his abilities. Now, basically, meanwhile, in Earth Realm, pretty much, where the temple is training, we're already at the entry exams, and Bakugo already got into UA. Pretty much, who's going to be taking Deku's spot is actually going to be, Kendo from Class 1B. Now, basically, they, pretty much, they basically go to they do their whole Mortal Kombat training, all that other stuff. Everything turns out the same, but Bakugo and Ida still lose because Kendo is on Ochaku's team. Kendo takes down Bakugo using her big hands and pretty much knocking him out. Now for Ochaku goes up there and pretty much takes, pretty much buys time with Ida and pretty much grabs the bomb at the last second, grabbing it at the same time, the same way she did in canon. We skip back to the Temple of Raining, the Temple of Rainen, and pretty much Deku using, his fire abilities, basically train on his superhuman abilities. Now, Deku knows a lot, and I mean a lot, about Kung Fu and combat, and hand-to-hand combat training now, because it's in his blood. Deku also has increased senses, agility, speed, and reflexes, able to grab an arrow in point-blank range, or fast enough to dodge bullets. That's how fast Deku can be on his reaction time. For Deku's abilities, or supernatural abilities, Deku has the ability to control flames. Now, basically, Deku can control flames just like Liu Kang, but Deku can also make fire constructs like a fire sword or fire, or fire fist. Stuff like Liu Kang can do. Pretty much Deku has a lot more creativity with fire, kind of like how Pyro from X-Men. Deku also has the ability to control other forces of fire, like he's shown taking down or redirecting the flames from Liu Kang. Deku also has the ability to jump incredibly high into the air, kind of like Liu Kang. Kind of like how Liu Kang can do that, multiple kick move in the air for so long. Now, I remember as a kid, I actually tried to do that move like several times in the air, but I can never stay in the air as long as I can. I remember doing that as a kid. Basically, Deku, is trained by, Liu Kang, getting all of his skills and being able to go toe-to-toe with him and actually almost win. Deku knows all the training and all the moves that Liu Kang knows. Not all of them, but Liu Kang did show him most of moves that he can learn to survive in a duel in the power of, or the, what's called, the tournament of power. They're at the temple and they hear a huge bang when Deku is training alongside, alongside, Jax and Sonya. And also, Deku Deku sees Rainen there, and Rainen brings in about 3 more champions of Mortal Kombat. Deku looks around and sees pretty much Bakugo, Todoroki, and what was it? Denki. Pretty much they are all brought here from Earth Realm to participate in the battle of the pretty much wars. And Deku looking at Bakugo and Bakugo looking at Deku saying, why is he here? He's quirkless. And pretty much Rainen says all the people here are quirkless, but they have the destiny or the power of the dragon symbol. Pretty much Bakugo shows dragon symbol on his wrist because at doing this training, the USJ happened. Now basically a couple people on the a couple people on the group, couple of the villains actually did have the symbol of the chosen one, or the symbol of the dragon. So when Bakugo threw an explosion, he accidentally killed one of them and got the symbol. Todoroki actually did the same thing, and also Tenki. So they were all teleported by Rainen to participate in the Tournament of Power Mortal Kombat. Pretty much, Deku snarls at Bakugo, and Bakugo saying to Deku, saying, what are you doing, nerd? And pretty much Deku saying, don't call me a nerd, you blonde weasel. Pretty much Bakugo gets angry and says, what did you call me? And Deku says, you know exactly what I called you. Pretty much conjuring a burst of flames in his hands. Bakugo says, ooh, is that your power? And Deku says, is that my only one? Pretty much Rainen says Deku is the chosen one. And everybody's going like, what do you mean chosen one? Pretty much he says, Deku is a descendant of multiple lines of generations and generations of great users in the Tournament of Power. He has multiple abilities, and abilities that can give him so much strength. Over the years, he has been a perfect molded weapon from generations to generations to have all the abilities of every single one of you. Pretty much all of them are confused, and pretty much they go to train immediately. Rainen tells Liu Kang and Kung Lao to pretty much train them as hard as they can. They start training them, and we go into the abilities that they got. Now, pretty much Jax is, hasn't shown any of his abilities. Now, for Sonya has shown some abilities, being able to shoot, green energy from her wrist, kind of like a repulsor blast. And Deku has been able to shoot, to shoot blue flames from his feet and hands, and also Deku being able to control Earth, and also use water and freeze water like Sub-Zero. Pretty much, Deku being able to, Deku being able to use multiple abilities at once. Deku also has the ability to teleport now, and Deku also has increased durability, giving him the chance of arrows just bouncing off of him. Bullets can still hurt Deku, but a simple arrow can't really pierce Deku's skin all the way. It can, nick it, but it's not gonna really cut it, like stab it. Pretty much, Deku, over the course of training, Bakugo develops a little bit more power. Pretty much him being able to pretty much instantly erupt anything into explosions just looking at them for longer than... If he looks at an object longer than 2 minutes, it instantly just explodes. So, yeah. So basically, for Denki's extra or dragon ability, Denki has the ability to use pretty much use his electric quirk without burning out his brain. So basically, Denki, doesn't have to burn out his brain to use his quirk. Now, for for Todoroki's power, Todoroki has the ability to use ice like Sub-Zero, but on a very more powerful scale. Now, he can't freeze a bullet like Sub-Zero, but he can make more bigger ice constructs. Now, Todoroki's quirk was way more better than Sub-Zero's quirk. I mean, power, but wasn't as, deadly as his. Pretty much, Todoroki is able to use his ice quirk on both sides of his body, so he doesn't have to rely on his other side to use his ice. So he can use his ice on both sides of his body. And Todoroki is very excited for this because he doesn't have to rely on his father's quirk. Now basically, he still has the drawbacks of his original quirk, he just can use it on both sides of his body now. Now, basically, they also bring in a new champion, Kano, and Kano walks in there, and, he discovers his ability, able to shoot lasers from his eye. Now, basically, Deku gets another ability that he's going to be getting later on in this What If, but pretty much Deku and the rest of the group start training, and they get to a pretty good start where the first tournament battle is about to begin. They get teleported to the Tournament of Power, and pretty much they start. Basically, what was it? I think it was Jax, Sonya, Deku, Todoroki, Bakugo, Denki, and also Kano get started, and also Kun Lao and Liu Kang, and also Raiden show up, and they get started. They see all these other tournament, or all these other opposers or challengers, and Deku looks at one particular guy, and the guy looks back at him, and he looks at Deku, and Deku is confused. And this person is going to be none other than Noob Saibot. Basically, they start their battle, and pretty much Deku putting on his outfit and his Mortal Kombat fighting attire is going to be. Pretty much Deku gets into his fighting attire, and his fighting attire is something like his new suit in the anime, but it doesn't have the mouth. Actually, it does have the mouthpiece, and Deku has fingerless gloves instead of the full-on gloves. Now, basically, they get started, and Deku gets ready. Now, basically, Deku gets started, and now basically, Deku's fighting attire is like this, but Todoroki's fighting attire is something very similar to the Firebender suit, or the Firebender clan's outfit. Now, also, Denki's suit is basically just a black and white version of Johnny Cage's suit, like with his, shades and everything. So yeah. Also, for Bakugo's suit is basically just something incredibly similar to, basically his suit is basically just his version of his hero costume suit, but without the giant gauntlets, and with his feet, or his boots just being, his boots being boots, yeah. So basically his suit is just his hero costume suit, but without the middle collar and the gauntlets. Now basically they get into the ring, and pretty much they start the tournament of power. Now they get ready, and they get into the ring, and Deku is chosen to be the first attendant. Deku gets into the ring with a random contester called Demo. This random contester is Demo, and he's basically, he's basically just a demon that has superhuman strength, agility, and speed, and reflexes, and also has a very dangerous mallet, or spiked out, blunt forced object. He also has the ability he's also fireproof. So basically, he gets into the ring, and they start fighting. They say, begin! And Deku runs towards Demo. Demo throws a huge swing towards Deku with his bat, but Deku dodges with ease, and Deku basically is put into the ring, and they go head on. Deku starts throwing punches left and right, and Demo throws a huge left hook at Deku, knocking Deku back. Deku gets back up, throwing a fireball and another fireball, and also the triple kick in the air in Demo's face. Demo gets out of the, attack, pretty much looking at Deku saying, "I'm fireproof, dummy," and pretty much throws a huge swing at Deku, knocking Deku back, and also taking pieces of Deku's flesh with the bat. Deku gets pushed back, and Deku gets pretty much super moved and gets hit upside, or gets uppercutted by the bat in the chin, getting knocked 20 feet up into the air and falling back down and breaking a few bones. Deku gets grabbed by the throat by Demo, and Demo about to crack Deku's skull or rip Deku's head off. Deku using the last bit of his powers to basically what's it called? And Deku being able to pretty much teleport out of the, clutches of him. Deku's confused, pretty much getting back up and using a huge fireball, throwing it towards Demo. Not on the intent of killing him, but able to stun him. Deku throws multiple fireballs at Demo, and Demo being confused, saying, "I told you I'm fireproof." And Deku says, I'm not talking about your fireproof," and pretty much jumps up in the air, grabbing the blunt force object out of Demo's hands and using it to cut Demo by the waist and pretty much breaking his whole entire body, pretty much cutting him in half. Deku is, and pretty much Demo was on the floor trying to crawl to his body. And and the man in the chair says, "Finish him." And Deku looks at Demo saying, "Sorry," and uses his blunt force object against him, slamming Demo's head in. Deku wins, and the next fight is on. Deku goes up against, Deku doesn't go up against anybody, and we switch to Kun Lao. Kun Lao starts getting into the ring, and they get started. Pretty much Deku starts running. Deku sees all this happening, and Liu Kang is going up against Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero gets into the ring and runs towards Liu Kang. Liu Kang dodges a few attacks, but he's not fast enough to dodge one few attack that freezes a piece of his body, or more or less one of his hands, and pretty much him using his fire abilities to break out of the ice. He uses another one of his fireballs to blast Sub-Zero back a couple of feet again and again and again and again and again and again and again, almost pushing Sub-Zero a couple of feet away from Liu Kang. Liu Kang sees this, and Sub-Zero gets back up, making an ice sword, saying, "You're going to die." Running towards pretty much Deku, seeing all what's happening, and Liu Kang going for a huge final fire blast right at Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero throws another punch left and right, and eventually gets to a certain point where he's making a huge ice wall, grabbing Liu Kang from the throat and throwing him through the ice wall. He makes a couple of ice shurikens, throwing it at Liu Kang. Liu Kang dodges it and throws a huge fire fist, or a huge fireball, like about the size of Todoroki's awakening move, and shoots it directly at Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero makes an ice force field around him, constantly refreezing it to make sure it doesn't melt away. Pretty much, Liu Kang uses all of his power for that final attack, and pretty much burning the whole entire stadium. Pretty much, Sub-Zero unfreezes this pillar around him, or the force field, and gets back up and saying that, is that all you got? Pretty much Liu Kang running towards Sub-Zero, and Sub-Zero freezing Liu Kang's foot, throwing him into the ground. Liu Kang is getting pretty much pummeled at this point, getting stabbed in the chest, punched in the face, and also getting pretty much his spine bashed in. Pretty much Liu Kang uses the last of his power, the very last bit of his life energy, to use one final attack, the Fire Fist, throwing a huge fire blast right into an uppercut right into Sub-Zero's face. Sub-Zero's about to get taken down because that was a huge, unexpected move for Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero gets back up, but he gets pretty much grabbed by the throat by Liu Kang, and Liu Kang's about to choke him out. But the tournament, or the master of the tournament, pretty much says to stop, and for pretty much round 2 to be continued at the end of the tournament. Pretty much Liu Kang Kang pretty much gets back up, gets off of Todoroki saying what gets off of Sub-Zero and says watch your back. Walking off and pretty much, you know, Deku looking at Liu Kang and saying that, well, time for Denki to go. Pretty much Denki says, what? And I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. So, I hope you guys enjoyed part 1. If you didn't, guys, sorry. So, yeah, basically, guys, Deku is going to be in the tournament of power. Now, guys, I'm gonna end it off here. Now, what was it? Part 1 to a new What If I'm working on. What if Deku had Stitch's powers? Is going to be coming out soon. So yeah. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the What If, and as always, guys, have a blessed day.